I'm just going to start the recording. There we go. I think we'll make a start now. I've had a couple of apologies. One from Dave due to just being busy with the hotel, and Michelle, just some family commitments. And Andrew from Boldover is going to come in at 5:15. So we'll just get started. I'll share my screen. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Workshop 2. Great to see you all here this afternoon. Briefly, just going to do some introductions. There's a couple of people who weren't here the last time, so if I could maybe get John and then Jason, just to sort of maybe introduce yourselves and just see a bit about your role within tourism. John, do you want to go first?
Yeah, happy to do that. So my name is John King. I'm the Food and Drink and Tourism Economic Development Officer for Dumfries and Galloway Council. And so our role really is to enable workshops like this, courses like this, anything we can do to enable tourism to improve and expand across Dumfries and Galloway. So apologies, I missed the first one. I was on holiday. Really glad to be here with you and see what everybody's up to. Cheers,
John. Jason, do you want to just sort of do a wee intro?
Yeah, similar to John. I'm Jason Powell. I'm the Tourism Marketing Manager for Bynn East Antrim. My main role is in marketing Bynn East Antrim as a tourism destination within Northern Ireland. But part of that role is also working with businesses and helping them to develop products, get them market ready, and then to promote them, linking in with the likes of Tourism NI and Tourism Ireland. So again, apologies, like John, I was away on holiday for the first one, but good to be here and be involved and meet all of you guys.
Thanks, Jason. That's great. So what we're going to do today, I'll just do a brief recap on the first workshop, and then this afternoon we're really focusing in on aspects of the travel trade. So we've got Yvonne who's going to do a sort of session as a sort of introduction to international tourism markets and how the travel trade works. And we're delighted to have Mike Dunthorne along from In Your Element. And I'll formally introduce him later on and give you a wee bit of background. And then we'll just have a wee overview in terms of where we are with the sort of business support, with the one-to-ones and the business improvement plans, the digital reviews. I've also just put out to you last week about the residential weekend. So I just want to try and just sort of bottom that out in terms of availability. Some of you have already got back to me to let me know. So that's great. And then we'll just wrap up in terms of the next workshop. So without much ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and Yvonne is going to start her talk.
Right, fantastic. I hope you can see that. I'm gonna do this. There we are.
Yeah.
Right, everybody, can you all see that? All good? Now, we're going to be talking a little bit about the travel trade. We obviously, whenever we had conversations with you, we did bring that up. But let's start at the very, very beginning. What actually is the travel trade? Who is the travel trade? Because I think that's really important to understand. So the travel trade is a distribution network of tourism and travel intermediaries who organize travel services and provide them as package tours or individually bookable services. So these tour operators and travel agencies, they make arrangements and contracts with hotels, with airlines, with attractions and other suppliers. And they promote these packages and sell them as an assembled program to individuals. Now, how does that look like in terms of distribution of your product? Now, what you're currently all doing is you're doing that little arrow on the very left. You see where it says product experiences, visits, and accommodation, and you go directly to your visitors. That might be through your website, it might be through TripAdvisor, through your Facebook page, and so forth. But there are so many more opportunities that you can and you should be considering. So going from the left to the right, you have the OTAs. These are the online travel agencies. And these will be guys sites like Booking.com if you had accommodation. It's Airbnb Experiences. It's TripAdvisor, who of course sell through Viator, which is a platform that specializes in particular activities and excursions. The other option would be that you're going through a tour operator who organizes FIT packages. And FIT stands for individuals. So up to 6 people, I would call an FIT. You then have the bigger organizations. You have DMCs. These are destination management companies. A lot of the time they will be based in the UK. They're based domestically. They know the destination very well. And they sell packages or individual services to tour operators who in turn sell the product through the travel agency onto the consumer. And then you have the big boys, the wholesalers. It's very much about the quantity. And a lot of the time they will be providing coach operators with products. And these coach operators, again, will be selling through a travel agency. So as you can see, there's quite a wide choice of how you can distribute your product to the visitors. And a lot of the time when we're looking at working with the travel trade, yes, we will be looking at getting your product recognized on the international markets. But of course, there's no doubt that the domestic market is very important as well. So if you're looking at how big this pie actually is, this here is from 2019, and it's UK-wide figures. So that will include England, Wales, Northern Ireland, and also Scotland. It gives you an overall picture. So within the UK, 78% of visits were done by the UK market. 12% of visits were done by the European market, and then 10% were done by international markets. But then when we're looking at the spend, this is where the story changes a little bit. So we see from the UK market, 55% of spend. The long haul market spends 26% of the total. And then the European market's 19%. And that gives you one of the reasons why it's so important to work with the international market, because their spend is so much higher. Yes, it's true that UK visitors travel all year round typically, but then you find you have more of a demand there or during school holidays and at weekends, whereas the international markets travel all year round, predominantly between April and September. But you know, the UK inbound visitors spending 28.4 million in 2019, that's quite nice. If you were to single that out for Northern Ireland, they spent $1 billion in Northern Ireland alone through 5.3 million visitors. So certainly the pie is big enough for everybody to have a big, juicy slice of that. But then when we look at the international visitors, we have to look at how they actually book, because it's so very different from the UK market. The US is the highest international market, the largest international market into Scotland, and also, because I checked that this afternoon, into Northern Ireland as well. Now, from the US visitors that we see, 55% use intermediaries, so they go through the travel trade. We see a very high usage of travel trade agents, of travel agents. The US, most of the time visitors there have their trusted travel agent they go through again and again to travel around the world. The good thing about the US market is that their bookings are usually made about 7 months in advance, 7 months prior to travel. So it's nice if you get these bookings in early, because you can see what your books are shaping out to be. The German market is the second largest market into our destination, and there the percentage is even higher. 65% will only ever book through the travel trade. And let me stress that they will only ever book through the travel trade. They will not come to you directly. Yes, they might have a look on your website and say, oh, this is something that I fancy doing. But when it comes to booking it, they will go through a tour operator or a travel agency. They tend to collate the information online and offline. It's a big, big hobby in Germany to go to a travel show. That's a consumer show. And they will be loading up with brochures of different destinations before they then choose their holiday and what they want to do on their holiday. And again, the German market books very far in advance. They book approximately 6 months in advance of travel, again, giving you plenty of warning of their arrival. So when you think of these numbers, you really have to realize that there's no effective way to reach the tourists pre-arrival without working through the travel trade. Yes, you could potentially hope that you reach them afterwards while they're in the country. How would you do that? You would maybe go through local ads, but you never know exactly what you're going to get. So I think going forward, when they're at their planning stage, when they're talking to their travel arranger, that's what you want to do, and this is who you want to go with. And then let's have a quick look at what the international visitors are looking for. And this is really an average, looking at all our key markets. So when they come to Scotland, they will be looking at scenery and landscape. This is really the biggest draw that we have on the British Isles in general. Yes, they are very much interested in history and culture. That's something they want to live and experience. A lot of them say they always wanted to travel. So that's really good to know that we're on the bucket list for a lot of international visitors. And yes, there's no doubt, visiting the cities is part and parcel of that as well. But a lot of them want to get away from it all. And why is that so important? That is important because they're really interested in rural destinations. The rural escapes is something that they balance with the city adventure that they will have. They're also, and this is an emerging trend really for the last 3 years, people want to sight do rather than sightsee. They don't just want to sit on a bus and look left and right. They want to get off the bus. They want to meet the locals, and they want to understand. They want to touch and feel things to kind of like really experience the destination. They're also interested in soft activities, and this is something that they consider to be safe. That's something that they think any ability can do. And that's something that gets very often included in travel programs as well. And especially from the North American market, yes, of course, they want to discover their ancestry as well. So where we have experiences off the beaten track, we have to make sure that they're easily accessible and that the visitors know about, that they exist, and this is something that they could be doing. Now, what does this mean working with inbound tour operators? Well, there are currently over 500 companies, give and take, that bring tourists to the UK. And the majority of them will offer package holidays. Now, these companies do a large amount of marketing. That might be through their website, through their brochures, and they do that marketing to the visitor while they are at their planning stage. Remember, the American market and the German market book 6-7 months in advance. They will be starting their planning about a year in advance, up to 10 months advance. Then these companies will advertise globally. Some specialize in certain countries. So for example, in the UK, and that's where they grow their interest. That's where they become real specialists in. So these travel distributors allow you as a business to reach customers that are international, and you're able to reach customers beyond your own marketing budget. That's really important. Now, when we're looking at this, we need to look at relevant travel styles, especially for the products that you have. Generally, all the businesses in your group, you have certain abilities and your product is suited to certain styles. So let's just have a look at the styles to help you then decide who your product is potentially suitable for. So you heard me mention before the FITs. There's many ideas around that: fully inclusive tours, fully individual travel. To me, it simply means that this is individuals. It might be a couple, it might be a couple of friends traveling together. But generally, we always talk about FITs when we talk up to 6 people. Now, a lot of the time we find that the FIT market will do self-drive programs. That means they hire a car or they come in their own car. They explore the country. Sometimes they stay just 1 night in a region. Sometimes they stay 2 or 3 nights in a region to do multi-center holidays. So this is quite an active program that they're doing. What will they be looking for? Well, if they haven't booked the entire program, including the activities, with their initial package, they might be booking an activity online. So bookability online is really important for this particular segment. What do we have next? We have leisure groups. Now, leisure groups come in different shapes and sizes. You could have a private group. This might be a group of friends, a club or association. And they're always quite good because you know that they're coming, you know that they're an existing group, and they will come to you and say, we're looking at a specific date. Have you got availability for us? Now, the next one is what we call the sit-in coach tours. These can either be large groups, so up to 40, 45 people, or they can be small tours, up to 16, 18, or 24 people. Now, what happens with these tours is that you have an operator who creates an itinerary, and they will book multiple days in advance, often 18 months in advance of travel. They then create this tour, they put it into their brochure, and they will then go out and sell it through the travel agencies to individual customers. A lot of the time you find that the sit-in coach tours consist of an older audience that's similar to the domestic coach operators, whereas the small group tours are very often attended by a younger audience and middle-aged people who are a little bit more independent and want to have that small group experience. Now, when this travel style books with you, they will always ask you on request. So the operator will get in touch with you and say, this is what I'm planning. This is the program that I want to do with you. And here's my dates. Can you do that? Sometimes it might be a self-guided activity, and sometimes they will ask you if you're able, to assist them with language, be it language guides and so forth. But a lot of the time, they will actually bring their own guides. And then we have the educational travel. I just want to mention that briefly because I don't feel it's that relevant for our group here, but it's worth mentioning that. Educational travel is put together by specialist agencies. A lot of the time they're based in the UK, and they will be looking after a group of individuals, very often high net worth clients who are interested in a specific theme. So that might be architecture, it might be history, it might even be activity, we never know. But these range from higher end individuals to younger adults as well. And it's maybe something that you can think, what could you potentially do for an educational travel operator? Is there something that you can do that would teach younger people around a specific theme that you're strong with? I'm looking at stargazing, for example. That might be something. So just keep that in mind and see how that would be a fit for your individual business. And then we need to look at the main intermediaries as well. So again, you have a little bit of a feel for who you're dealing with. And I mentioned before the wholesalers and large tour operators. Now, these operators have a global reach. They will be doing group travel as well as FIT programs. But these are the big guys. They're looking for quantity. So when they book with you, they would expect you to be available every day of the week throughout the year where possible. So maybe not quite the right fit, but there's others that might be a lot better. So there are, for example, niche operators. They're very often specialized in either a destination or a theme. So it might be an operator who say, I do travel to the UK only. It might be an operator who does adventure tourism, who does active tourism, for example, walking tour operators and so forth, cycle specialists. And this is what I see, especially for you guys, a real opportunity, because these operators very often are very flexible and they're more forthcoming in terms of trying new programs. But then also, they just have the right client for us, haven't they? They have the client who wants to be a little bit more active, who tries to do new things. And then we have the travel agencies and the small tour operators, and they're really important in some of the consumer segments. Remember when I talked about the American market and I said they really trust in the travel agent. They're sometimes difficult to get hold of, but often when they're good, they will find you. Keep in mind that with these small operators, it's small quantity. They might only come to you once every 3 years, but when they do, very often it will be very high quality. It will be very high spend. They might have a client who says, I want to do an experience. I want to do it exclusively, and I don't care how much it costs. So again, it provides a really good opportunity for us. So you've got your product, you're going to the trade, but before we do that, we need to kind of like have a look at it, how the travel trade actually builds their programs, builds their itineraries, and buys new product. And there's two ways. So one might be that the tour operator, the travel agent, comes to you directly and says, tell me all about your product. Yes, I like it. I've got the right client for you. Or they might be going to a DMC, a destination management company, which is a destination specialist for the UK, for Scotland, for Northern Ireland. And they will package up new ideas, and they will then go to the tour operators, to the travel agencies and say, look, I've got new programs here. Would that not be a good fit for your market? But whichever way the travel trade goes, there are some key considerations that they have. Now, the first one, of course, is sellability. Any operator within the travel trade will be looking at the product combined with other product ideas. So the new program, and see, is there something that we can actually sell on our market? And closely linked to that is availability. So they will either say for individuals, for FITs, is there a regular schedule of activity that we can book our clients onto? And for groups, if I send a request, will those requests be fulfilled? If you turn around 9 out of 10 times them asking you and saying, sorry, I can't do this, that's probably going to turn the tour operator off. Then there's operational aspects. Is the operational aspect very difficult? Is it difficult to book? Does it take a long time to get answers? Again, that is something that will turn the tour operator off. And then, of course, the cost per platform. Where you have an operator that produces a brochure, there's a very specific cost, and it's not a cheap cost for each entry into their brochure, especially if they're adding programs. New pages cost money. So that then goes back to the sellability. The operator will say, is this strong enough a program that includes your product? So I can sell enough to break even on the cost of my platform. And sometimes they might turn around and say, no, I don't think this is strong enough. It will not sell enough. But this is where the niche operators come in again. They very often trial new programs on their websites, and the websites are a lot cheaper to run. So they will say, you know what, I've got your product, I'll put this into your program, we try it out, we give it 2 years, and if it works, we're going to put it into the brochure as well. And then what are the travel trade looking for in a product? Well, needless to say, they're looking for a quality product and experience that will be delivered by you consistently. They're hoping for reliability and efficiency. So, for example, consistent operating hours and regular schedules. They want to have a high level of customer service and, of course, helpful reservation staff. They need clear and easy to understand collateral, and online is definitely more important than offline. They're hoping that you will understand the cultural needs of the different markets, and that the pricing that you give them is commissionable and that it's consistent for them. So they're hoping that you give their competition exactly the same prices. And they absolutely do need easy communication, either by phone or by email, especially where you have a product that is on request. So let's have a quick look at the commercial requirements. And this is the one that I can see all of you shiver ever so slightly. If you want to engage with the travel trade, and I'm talking here about the traditional tour operators, so those that produce programs in advance for the international markets, they will be looking at trade rates approximately 18 months in advance, but 12 months in advance at the very latest. It's just because the planning cycle is so long. I do have to stress that this is not something that applies if you're planning to engage, for example, with the OTAs, with TripAdvisor, with Viator, Airbnb experiences. The OTAs work on a much shorter time scale. This is really just for the traditional tour operator market. Now, when they are requesting bookings with you, they need really a fast response, ideally within 24 hours. Non-refundable deposits are really difficult for the traditional travel trade because the travel laws internationally are so lenient and they're all skewed towards the consumer that, for example, in the German market, if a customer is a no-show, the tour operator can still not charge 100%. So keeping all that in mind, all these travel laws that are out there, they just can't work with non-refundable deposits. Yes, you're always looking for value for money. This is why I always say to you, look around you, look at what other people are charging and see that you fall within that. They absolutely want to have a point of contact. And if you have any staff, any people that you work with who speak languages, make that known as well. But you know, it sounds like that the travel trade have very high demands. Yes, they have certain expectations, but they're really a good bunch. And they always say that they're looking for cooperation partners to work for all their success. They're as interested in you being successful as they want to be successful as well. I see at the end of the day, it's always in communication, isn't it? And then what about the pricing for the trade? Well, I hear a lot of times the question, well, what price shall I charge? And I always say every business is different. At the end of the day, you have to decide what's right for you, what makes you a profitable business. And, you know, do your due diligence, look around what other competitors are charging. But when you work with the travel trade, they are looking for a net rate. That means that it's a price that has already got the commission deducted. So as an example, if your experience is £10 and you decide to go for a 20% commission, you would say to the tour operator, I'll charge you £8. So it's already deducted and the £8 is your net rate. And then you always have to be very clear, is that rate per person, per activity, is it per vehicle, is it per boat? And just remember rate parity as well. The travel trade will also always expect you to include VAT in the price. Don't say it's £8 plus VAT. The VAT needs to be included in that. And here's a little quirk of the trade. The travel trade looks at pricing in seasons. So they don't want a price from January or December. They want a price from the 1st of April until the 31st of March the next year, because it means they cover the summer season and then the winter season as well. Now, pricing for the trade. Here's a little bit of a discount guideline, and note the word guideline. The OTAs, Booking.com, Expedia, Airbnb, they'll probably come to you and say they want to have 30%. And what you do is you turn around and say, no, sorry, can't do that. And you say to them, but I can give you 10%. And then they will either agree to that or you meet somewhere in the middle. But usually, you know, I hear stories from anything between 10% to 30%. It depends on your business. It depends on what you can do pricing wise, but it's always worth speaking up and saying to you, this is what I can give you. And most of the time you'll find they agree to that. When you're working with some more traditional operators, so the tour operators, the wholesalers, the DMC, they will usually ask you for 20%. But you know, again, that will be negotiable. I think as you start working with the travel trade, if that's what you decide to do, you might actually start with 10%. If somebody really likes your product, I've seen over the last few years, there's a lot more leniency now. And they will say, do you know what, we'll package you up with other experiences, with other products, and we'll hide it within that. But just be prepared that most likely they will be asking you for 20%. And then you have the retail travel agencies. So the travel agencies generally will ask you for 10 to 15%. So when we do our session, when we have our one-to-ones, we can have a little bit of a conversation around this with each of you individuals, see where you are and see what you like to do and where you would want to go. But you know, I always say about this commission and about what you have to give the operators, I think you need to look at it the other way around. You need to consider this to be a marketing fee, and you need to include it in your pricing from the very outset. So it might not be something you might want to do for this year, but when you consider your pricing for next year, put that in there, put it in as a marketing fee, because you have to be aware that when you work with the travel trade, these are all people that will never ever come to you directly because they want to book through the travel trade. Just think back, 55% of Americans and 65% of Germans will always only come to the travel trade. That means they're actually delivering you 80% more revenue than you would have had before. And because you pay this commission only on an successful sale, it is a no-win and no-fee relationship that you have there. So you're basically paying this marketing fee only, and you're having 100% return of investment, which is really amazing. So that's the way I would like you to look at that. And then, yes, there are certain quirks the trade have, the traditional travel trade, definitely. They do have a very international mindset because they know exactly where their customers are coming from. But also, these operators are time poor. So whatever story you tell them around your product, it has to be efficient and it has to be creative. So offer them a complete solution. For example, best example, not relevant, but maybe you understand what I mean. If you had a self-catering place, offer them catering options, because this is something what they need for their individual customers. Just think where they're coming from, what they're having with them on their holiday. It's not that they can nip home and get changed and get warm. Just see if you can provide them either with the information or say to them quite clearly, you need to bring warm clothing for after your experience. And then, of course, collaborate with other suppliers in the area, and whatever story you do, make it nice and simple, because working with the travel trade means you're building a relationship and you're telling a story. And then how would you do best engage with the travel trade once you decided you want to go there? Well, you might want to consider attending trade missions and trade events, but that's really quite high up there. There's other ways to go. So the first step really for you would be to visit Scotland. Let Visit Scotland know what your product is and that you're happy to engage with the travel trade. The same with Tourism Northern Ireland. Let them know that you're there. Ask them about the trade events that they have. Discover Scotland and Meet the Buyer, and see if you can get involved with that somehow. There's also industry organisation, for example, UK Inbound. That really is a very good networking platform, but a little bit more expensive. And then look around for domestic holiday exhibitions as well. Maybe go one day, check them out and see if that's something for you maybe to engage with. But you know, as I said, you need to create a destination. The important thing is that whatever your product is and however good your product is, you can't ever sell it on its own. You have to create a destination, and you have to sell your destination before you sell your product. That's really important. And then lastly, popping back, it is important that you engage with the right operator, especially I think with the group of businesses we have here. There is no point you going to TUI Travel and say, look, you know, this is what we do. TUI Travel won't be interested because they only do the standard programs. Well, if they do them, because I hear they're cancelling all their flights at the moment. But for us, really, it's the specialist operators that are important for us. So activity operators that specialize in walking, hiking, cycling. There are other operators to slow travel, they do nature travel, where they really want to immerse themselves in a destination and in a product that's there. You would be looking out for the FIT operators, the small group operators who are looking for experience and options, particularly add-on options. And then there's other operators who are really big in social responsibility, who really want to engage with the country and with the people. These are, for example, Contiki Reisen or the Travel Corporation. Again, these provide a lot of opportunity for the more unusual products. And then there's even specialist OTAs to look at, such as Much Better Travel and others. So just make sure that whatever you do it well and you're very focused. Now, are there any questions at this moment in time? I know that we're all going to have our one-to-one, so you can quiz me anything to do with your specific business, but are there any comments or any questions just now? Anybody?
Yes, me, Esther. Hi.
Esther, hello.
Two things actually from my side. So the very first slide you said, you know, it's like the sort of international travel. They look very much for, the trends are for soft activities. That's what you put there. And I'm not 100% sure if sort of our group is very much considered as a soft activity. Some of us potentially, but others maybe a bit more than just soft.
Yeah.
Are we going to cover actually the sort of the numbers, what it is for sort of the medium level activities? You know, it's like not outgoing, whatever, climb Everest type of things, but it would be probably quite interesting to figure that out, what the numbers are there and the percentages in the international trade. And then the other thought I had was, but this is probably going sort of thinking bigger, because obviously we represent here as a group, we very much represent one part of the south of Scotland. Do you think that, it might be actually quite useful to club together and go as a group with sort of activities what we to specific international events, because I think it might be quite useful that we have a voice as activity providers for the South that can be probably quite strong. And actually the third one is, you mentioned Visit Scotland as a place to go, but obviously we know there's also the SSDA that is pushing and is trying to do the international and travel trade. They're obviously very young in what they're trying to do. Experiences so far, or just trying everything? What's your thoughts?
Well, okay, I'll start from back to front. So I think that, Visit Scotland plays such an important role that Visit Scotland has to be aware of what this group is doing, of the individual businesses, for them to take out to the markets as well. Yes, the SST is very important as well, and they're doing international marketing as well, but I see their strength at the moment very much on the domestic side. The key focus for them currently is domestic, which also is a good thing. And we had, of course, Ross from the SSDA on the first workshop. But, as we said to you in the one-to-one meetings as well, definitely worth engaging with them and seeing how you can get onto their sites to make your product better known to the markets that are there. Mm-hmm. But what's your second question? Clubbing together. Yeah. Yes. Clubbing together, I think that is a very good idea. And, you've been doing a little bit of future gazing there. I think it will be really exciting to explore that in a little bit more detail. And I'm sure that Fergus will agree with that because, it has been in conversation, with other, not only other regions, but other businesses as well. Fergus, you want to give a little bit of background on that, what the conversations have been in the past?
Yeah, there's been a bit of a sort of dialogue with when they were developing the outdoors strategy for Scotland. We did a lot of workshops around the UK, around Scotland. But one of the sort of things that was coming out of that was about stronger collaboration of the industry, like through Wild Scotland, which are the membership organisation for the outdoor space, and for them to work together, not to be a Visit Scotland-led thing, but to be an industry-led thing where they come together and they showcase the Scottish products to the world through the event that's been held online this year, but it's back in Aberdeen next year, where the travel trade come to Scotland, and there's an opportunity to do that. We're still waiting for the outcome of that report to be published. It was meant to be in May. I'm hoping it's going to be sometime in June with ministerial approval. So I think that's just something we'll keep you in the loop with as things unfold. I think the bigger picture is, I know I had a wee sort of offline chat with Ross electronically about just talking about the adventure space in the south of Scotland. There's obviously a good group of providers that are on this programme, and there are others that are not within D&G, but there's also quite a nice mix of offers across in the borders. So you could actually create quite a strong sort of regional collaboration in terms of really pushing out this sector to the marketplace collectively. So I think these are things for consideration in the longer term, if that answers the question.
And I also think, Esther, that maybe this is a conversation to be had with the SSDA fairly soon as they're planning participation of Discover Scotland in Aberdeen next year. So Discover Scotland is a trade show that brings a lot of international operators to the country, to Scotland. It is scheduled, I think, for April next year. So the sooner a conversation like that is being held, the better, depending on what the SSDA are planning. It might be that they're taking an entire large section for the south of Scotland that gives different providers a space to exhibit, where then a decision could be taken that the activity providers come together and have one or two representatives, maybe different people on different days, but kind of like maybe just already noting a little bit of interest with the SSTA to see this is something that we touched upon. when you have conversations around that, get us involved. And then
Morgan, you got your hand up.
Yep, sorry, was that all the questions answered?
I think there was one last one left, which was around the adventure tourism sector. Fergus, again, the work that we've done there for the adventure sector strategy, were there any more detailed information in that report around the sector, the value of the sector in Scotland?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, there's some information that there was a whole lot of research done that's still not out in the public domain. I think what I'll find out is that we're able to share this with the group in terms of that information that breaks everything down into the sort of 24 different activities and all the demographics and things. So leave that with me in terms of that intelligence, because I think that's something that's important to be shared, not just with this group, with the industry as a whole across Scotland.
Okay. My question was just around engagement with the tour operators, I suppose, because it feels a little bit like, I know we've talked about collaboration and we've talked about events, but it feels a bit, as a very small business, and as most of us on here are very small businesses, it feels a little bit David and Goliath almost. You know, how would you approach these, how would you approach the travel trades as a really small business and engage with them and essentially get their buy-in?
I think that's probably a timeless lead-in, without jumping in there, Yvonne, with Mike, who's with us this evening. So what we've got Yvonne describing that process, and then Mike's actually going to tell him a wee bit about the journey he's been through as a business. So Mike's from In Your Element. They started in 2014 from humble beginnings and have grown over the years to be a sort of multi-activity, multi-site operation across Scotland. And the travel trade aspects of the business was something that they embraced, and it's been something that's helped them grow their business. So this is probably just the right juncture to bring Mike in, and he's going to spend some time just describing his experiences. And we're doing this with all the workshops going forward, where we've actually got people on the ground who've been there and done it. And I think that's something that's good to impart. So we appreciate your time, Mike. I know you're an exceptionally busy man, and I know I've been sort of badgering you to come and help us out, but much appreciated. So do you want to just jump on now with your screen share?
Yep, sure. Hi, everybody. Thank you for the invite to join you. Fergus, can I just check how we're doing for time? What time do you need me finished by? Yeah, if you've got maybe like 15 minutes. You're also a bit speakery. You're a bit distant. I tell you what, I'm going to pop the headphones on and get better sound quality.
Is that better?
That's a lot better. Perfect.
Yeah. Cool. Okie dokie. Right, I'm going to share my screen with you folks. Hopefully. There you go. Are you seeing my home slide?
All good.
Fantastic. Okay, so my name is Mike Dunthorne, and I run a business called In Your Element. Fergus was close. He was only 10 years out in how long we've been going. It was actually 2004 rather than 2014. That's okay. Those of you who have been running your business for a while, those of you who have still got colour in your hair, or indeed hair at all, this could be what you look like after 18 years of running your own adventure tourism business. So good luck with that. So yeah, we've been going a wee while. I've been asked to have a chat with you today about just our experience of working with the travel trade. And you can see here that we've been tinkering for years, and it's taken me kind of 15 years to make it a key part of my business. And there's various reasons for that. One is that the travel trade itself and tourism has changed a lot in that time. As you can see from some of my terminology there, we didn't take it very seriously to start with, and therefore we didn't get very far with it in the early days at all. One thing about working with the travel trade is they love their TLAs, their 3-letter abbreviations. So please interrupt me. There are quite a few in my presentation, but I'm going to explain them as I go. It took me quite a wee while. The other thing is Yvonne's presentation was fantastic. She is an expert on the travel trade. I am not. I kind of know how we interact with certain parts of the travel trade. So if any of my definitions or anything conflict with anything Yvonne said, she's right, I am wrong. I'll just get that clear right from the start. So my business, we started off very much as an activity provider, offering day, half-day activity sessions mainly to visitors to the area. And it really does show me how much our industry has changed since I set up In Your Element, or Boots and Paddles as it was then in 2004. One of the first things I did, having worked at residential outdoor centres, one of the first things I did was join the local tourist board. Other people in the industry that I'd worked with previously said, "What are you doing? We're not in the tourism industry." So way back then, 2003, 2004, the activity adventure industry were not necessarily seen. They're very much educational provision and working with youth groups. So there's been a massive change in that time. So our range of activities, the original name was Boots and Paddles because I was right into hill walking and canoeing. That's all I wanted to do, was take people walking and canoeing. Because I had a multi-activity background, it kind of mushroomed very early on though. So we now we've just opened a 5th branch cross country. So based up near Inverness, where we started the business, we opened a branch in Aviemore quite a while ago, and then Loch Lomond, and then Loch Tay, and then we found ourselves running quite a lot of sea kayak holidays on the West Coast. So we've just opened a very small team in Fort William. So although we've got 5 locations, that sounds like a really big business. We don't. We've got 5 small businesses. None of the locations employ more than kind of 8 people. So we're a series of small businesses rather than one big one. Right, here we go. So we evolved from just running short sessions of activities, and we still do that. We still do a lot of that. We've got 2 high ropes courses, which kind of fits visitor attraction, and the 5 multi-activity bases. We specialize in kind of water sports. We do a lot of canoeing, sea kayaking, gorge walking, canyoning, that kind of thing. Also mountain biking and bits of climbing and various other bits and pieces. So we have now evolved in that time to become not only an activity provider, but an adventure travel company. So we now run quite a number, around 60 to 70 4 or 5 day adventure holidays each year, canoeing and sea kayaking. So this subject is very pertinent because we are actually evolving yet again, and we are starting to get involved in some destination management company activities ourselves. We'll explain more about that later. So that's how our company has evolved. Some of you will be at that stage, quite an early start, very small business, which we were for probably the first 10 years. And then we started running holidays, the multi-day things. And then like I said, there's a new angle that we're just getting a taste of now as well. So first, some stumbling steps with involvement in the travel trade. The earliest memory I can think of was when Invergordon, which is our local deep water port, was at the forefront of developing cruise tourism in Scotland. And then we realised that there was a lot of people who were cooped up on a cruise ship who normally would enjoy the outdoors, enjoy outdoor exercise, and as soon as they got a chance to get off the ship, they were looking for something active to do. So we hooked up with some of the companies that organised shore excursions from the cruise ships in Invergordon. We did that for 2 years and then we ditched it. It was a pain for us. Obviously, our peak season is July and August, which is peak cruising time. And these guys were expecting us to reserve a lot of capacity on key dates in the summer. And they were going to tell us 7 days out whether they had any customers for us or not. So that just it didn't work for us at all. We couldn't reserve that amount of capacity with that late notice in peak summer seasons. So we've done virtually nothing with them since. All the examples I'm going to give are our personal experiences. Depending on your business, working with cruise ship companies might be right up your street. Just because it didn't work for us doesn't mean to say it's not a better fit for your business. Also in the early days, I got all enthusiastic about working with the travel trade, and I joined in a SDI, then travel trade mission to Germany. This was in about year 3 of running my business, and I went off all prepared with my materials, and Scottish Development International kindly set up appointments with us with various tour operators in Germany. It was a disaster. Not for everybody on the trip. It was a disaster for me because I was completely unprepared. I had very unprofessional packages of materials and information to give out, and I didn't really know what I was talking about. So trade missions can be really effective, and using Visit Scotland, SDI, whoever it is, their networks abroad is a very powerful tool for getting in touch with the people we need to get in touch with. But I did it too soon, and it was a steep learning curve for me. It cost quite a lot of money to go and quite a lot of time, and I got zero business from it. The Drambuie pursuit was what really piqued my interest in working with not necessarily traditional travel trade, but with big event organisers, which are a section, but not a widely talked about section of the travel trade. So Drambuie, this must be about 12 years ago, and they were looking to reposition their brand to a younger audience. So they got in touch with a big events company down in the southeast of England, said, design us an event that we can run. We've got a massive budget. We want to change Drambuie from a drink that old men have a sip of in a sherry glass after dinner to something that young people drink in trendy bars as a long drink with various mixers. So we came up, and this events company had a look in the Highlands, the strong connection with Bonnie Prince Charlie to the story of Drambuie and the secret recipe and all this nonsense. So they wanted to do something around Culloden and Skye. So we worked with them, and it was a brilliant event. It was televised on Channel 4, and it ended up running for about 5 years. So it's huge for us. There's no way we could run all the activities on our own. So we pulled in everybody that we knew, all the local providers en route between Skye and us. But we kind of coordinated the adventure side, and it was a brilliant, really high profile thing. So that really piqued their interest in that kind of aspect of the industry. So moving on, so this is the kind of early 2010s now. We thought, right, we've got spare capacity. Let's try again and working with the travel trade with overseas tour operators. So we went to Visit Scotland Expo, and I'm assuming that's what Yvonne was referring to, Discover Scotland, I think was the new name for it. So we signed up for that. Again, quite a big investment for a small business to take a stand at Expo. So we couldn't afford to do it every year, no chance. So we did it every second year for about 3 years. Really good vibe, really good buzz about being at Expo. A great shop window, and we met lots and lots and lots of people, travel agents and tour operators from around the world. One thing I mentioned this at the end: don't expect quick business from things like this. It is a long-term investment, and we came away quite dejected. And it was touch and go whether we went the third time, and we did. Because after the first couple of expos, we thought, oh, we've got very little business from it. But it was really, really interesting that we still get inquiries now from random Indian tour operators who phone up and asked to speak to Mike or asked to speak to Callum and said, remember me, I met you at Visit Scotland Expo in Aberdeen in 2014. And of course you'd go, oh yes, I remember you, how are you doing? They've got you on their files, and finally they've got a group coming to Scotland who want to do something adventurous. So it's a very slow payback. So we do a little bit of that. next thing, the free independent travel. Yvonne gives you a really good introduction to those groups, very small groups. So these are our connections with that section of the market are through people like Abbey Tours and Cashel Travel, who have people phone them up and from abroad or from UK and say, right, take my family, it's a special birthday, and take my family, 5 people, and put an itinerary together. This is the kind of thing we're interested in. And if they've got kids with them, then they generally want an active element of it. So Abbey Tours and Cashel Travel, they actually, one thing I didn't realize about growing my business is we've become more appealing to these guys, because rather than having to have a good canoeing operator contact in each area of Scotland, depending where the clients want to go, we're actually becoming a bit of a one-stop shop for these guys, because no matter if the clients want to canoe in Loch Lomond or Loch Tay or Loch Ness, they know they can pick up the phone to us. And so that is kind of, it's small, but it's growing, that aspect. And then bespoke group events. This is probably definitely one of the main benefits that we get, and particularly as we are growing a little bit bigger, we can take on bigger events. So destination management companies, Yvonne mentioned about those two. We actually work with some of the less traditional DMCs, and I've mentioned there, given an example of wedding planners. We work with quite a few wedding planners who arrange Highland weddings for people from abroad. It might be UK, but a lot of them are American or Dutch or whatever, and there's some kind of Scottish connection. So they're not just gathering at a hotel for one night wedding hoolie and then everyone's going home. They tend to be taken on an exclusive use property for at least a weekend, sometimes 4 or 5 days. And sometimes when I say an exclusive use property, this could be the likes of Albury Castle in Loch Ness, which is way beyond 5-star, and it costs about 30 grand a night to rent the castle. It's really high end. It's American kind of millionaires and billionaires who come there. So we work a lot with wedding planners. Highland Games is big. Mini Highland Games is a big product for them, but also just canoeing and archery in the grounds, off-road segways, all sorts of bits and pieces. I've given an example of a specific DMC guy that we work with, a guy called Andrew Burnett. He used to be in Edinburgh based. He's moved to Aberdeenshire. Again, he's pretty high end, his connections. And we're actually working with Andrew now. We've done a few small events with him over the past couple of years, but we're now working on a massive one. He's got 350 Dutch IT consultants coming over to Aviemore in October, and we are working with them for 3 days. It's a massive gig for us. It's huge, but that's really quite exciting. So the route, there's a lot of connection there. I think, sorry, I've moved my question. Was it Marion? Morgan's question was about, right, how do we as small businesses make linkages with these guys? And Andrew Burnett is a classic example for us. We met him through one of our accommodation partners. He was organising an event at one of the local castles, and he asked the castle, who would you recommend for whatever, an archery session in the grounds in the afternoon? And they mentioned us, and he was impressed with what we delivered. So we went in his little black book, and then 8 years later, he's coming to us with a 100 grand booking for this October. So that's kind of how this works. A lot of it is connections. Networking is so important. Local networking, I'm not meaning you getting in front of these guys necessarily, but it's you being known locally for what you're really good at and how you can help people. My next example here, so these are all from the last kind of 5-6 years now, where we're working more and more with the travel trade. So GIT, I read somewhere, it stands for a group inclusive travel. So this particular client, we're not allowed to name due to a non-disclosure agreement we have with them. But shall we just say that they're the travel arm of a rather large film studio, and who's got a little furry creature as the main character. Anyway, so these guys, this is why local networking is so important. Years and years ago, this must be 7 or 8 years ago now. This company came to the Highlands. One of their films, one of their cartoony animation films, had been based on a Scottish story, and they realised that they weren't offering an itinerary to Scotland. So somebody was told rather abruptly that they better get this sorted out and start running a Scottish itinerary. So they sent the product development manager over to Inverness to ask around. They were putting together a 8-day itinerary to Scotland to sell to their fans. And I got a call. They'd been around in the Highlands for 3 days, and I got a call one day from Robbie Bremner, who runs the Loch Ness Exhibition Centre. And he said, Mike, there's some guys in town you really, really want to meet. So he put me in touch with them, and I managed to meet them for breakfast at their hotel on the day they were leaving. And we were a really good match. So because it's from families, and the movie involved horse riding and archery and lots of castles, which we do activities at. So we ended up on their 8-day tour of Scotland, running activity days on 4 of those 8 days when the product finally launched. And we're still working with them now. They're back again this year, and they're up to 12 departures of 35 people a year. And we're still working 3 days. The tour has shrunk a wee bit, but it's a huge bit of business. It's been a really good relationship over the years. And the only reason that we got on their radar at all was Robbie Bremner mentioned my name to them when they went to him to arrange a tour of his Loch Ness Exhibition Centre. So, number one reason the most successful partnerships that we've developed with the travel trade have come by networking and being known locally by locally influential people, but big accommodation providers as the go-to people for adventurous activities.
A few minutes, mate.
Right, okay, getting there. So online tour agents, we have dabbled with the OTAs that Yvonne was talking about on kind of day experiences with Viator and people like that. We've actually found them really quite hard to work with. Viator in particular, they have a nasty habit of creating availability when none exists. You post your availability for products, and then they get a client looking for your canoe and Loch Ness trip on the day that we don't have it, and they just take the booking anyway, and then announce to you that you need to put some availability on. So we didn't find them great to work with, and we actually, one of the advantages of these guys, and this is how we're going to use those people in the future, is when in slacker years, when it's hard to fill our spaces on our scheduled activities, we'll go back and use them to fill up space. Last year, we knew last year was going to be nuts, and we could fill everything that we could possibly put on. So we totally took all our products off, all these Airbnb experiences, Viator, everything. Why pay that commission in years when it's really busy and you know you can fill them yourself? So they have their place. Where we do have really success in the last 3 years, we have worked with some of the specialist guys. And Yvonne mentioned Much Better Adventures. We've become a really big partner of Much Better Adventures. We also work with Secret Adventures and Skyhook. And this is selling adventure holidays, 4 and 5 day itineraries. They are brilliant. We sit back and we just watch the bookings roll, and they've got massive marketing budgets. And so we've always run Great Glen Canoe Trail holidays ourselves, and typically we manage to fill 4 or 5 a year. We're now running a total different venues. So we're not just on the Great Glen, but we're now running about 65 canoe and kayak expeditions a year, thanks to these guys selling our trips. I'm not going to dwell on the last bit. I touched on it about we are now getting to the point where we are actually becoming a bit of a DMC ourselves. So these guys, Corporate Travel and Events, a Danish company, they inquired with us about 4 or 5 years about an event that they were pitching for. They didn't get the gig, but they were really impressed by the response they got from us when they contacted us. So years later, they came back and said, we've got a bigger event that we're wondering if you can help us with. And that turned into our biggest booking ever. This was 160 Danish management consultants coming over to Scotland for 4 days. And it was brilliant. We arranged everything from when he put us down in Inverness Airport in the charter flights. We had big reception area set in the car park. They then split up into groups of 8 and went off around the Highlands on 3-day mini adventures, 20 groups, and then brought them all together in a big exclusive use house for a massive party. So we arranged a lot of that, not just activities, all the accommodation and transport and everything. So that was really exciting. That was quite stressful and great looking. Just pulling together, working with loads of different partners. So that's a brief flavour of the kind of work we do with travel trade. It's changed over the years, and there's lots of little dribbles of little business, but then we get these occasional really big things. So we've got to the position now that we're approximately 35% of our turnovers with the travel trade. And I know I've been there. I remember when somebody first said to me, yeah, we'll sell the trip, but we want 20%. And I was kind of aghast, absolutely aghast that somebody wanted 20% of our hard-earned money to sell a trip for us. But it is so worth it. I reckon, looking at just our adventure holiday program, canoeing, kayak and holidays, turning over £200,000 in those now. So we're paying £40,000 in commission to these guys. To have a hope of attracting that business directly, I reckon I would need at least 1, if not 2, marketing staff full time, and probably a 50 grand advertising budget, social media budget. So to attract that business myself, I reckon I would need to set aside double, £80,000 in order to attract that business direct. And I know I'm talking big numbers, and that's hard to relate for small businesses, but I was where you were 10 years ago. So hopefully you can relate a wee bit to it. Little bites can lead to big fish. Andrew Burnett, we did about 3 or 4 tiny little events before he came to us. Once he knew we could deliver to the standard he expected with his high-end clients, then he comes along with a huge big one. So you just don't know where these big bookings are going to come from. Mentioned before, but especially things like expo and trade missions, it can be a really slow burn. Don't expect instant returns. That would be very unusual to get instant returns from those. It's a building up of the partnership and the relationship. My top tip from today is network, network, network. I think I've referred a couple of times. It's so hard for us, the small businesses, to reach and make contact with the decision makers. So use your network, get your name known, provide high quality experiences, word will spread, and it will do your marketing for you. Brief one here, because I'm almost certainly well over time now, sorry Fergus. Supply chain value alignment. I've tried to avoid management speak in this, but this is becoming really important. All our partners now need us to demonstrate how we are socially responsible. And it's like any big brand now, clothing brands, right down the supply chain, they have to be sure that their supply chain is responsible and got the same kind of value system as them. Sorry, jumped a wee bit there. So you can't just talk the talk anymore. You've got to live it. You've really got to be responsible socially and environmentally, or they're not going to partner with you. Finally, we in Scotland have always had a problem, I think, in having the confidence in what we deliver. We have got an amazing outdoor adventure and wider kind of experience industry. People are astounded when they come to Scotland about what we have in such a small country. We've got excellent operators. So please, don't be shy about what you can deliver and what you need to make it worthwhile and make a living from it. You're much better than you think you are, I suspect, if you're anything like me in the early days. Sorry, Fergus, race through that.
That was brilliant, Mike. I mean, I think that just gives quite a nice overview in terms of your journey, but also it sows the seeds in terms of some of the decisions that businesses have to make in terms of the timing, putting the energy into it. It is a slow burn, but if you're in it for the long haul, doing the right things at the right time can start to reap the benefits. So I really appreciate what you've just shared with the group. Has anybody got any, I'm sure there'll be questions. I know we've just slightly ran over and I appreciate people's patience. Has anybody got any sort of questions for Mike while we've got him online at the moment? There must be at least
Mike.
one.
Yeah, I've got a question, Fergus.
Okay,
So,
John.
when you're talking about networking, you're talking about networking with the people around you, the hotels, the visitor attractions, because sometimes going to the online travel kind of things is a bit out there, but there's lots of people we need to be speaking to in our local area to see if they will sell our stuff or make contact with people or point us in the right direction. Have I interpreted what you said correctly?
Yes, and my contact with Robbie Brenner was an interesting one because he runs an exhibition centre who will never be a direct client of mine. So that was an interesting one. I got to know Robbie because I had actually gone on the board of Destination Loch Ness as it was at the time. So that's where I really got to know Robbie, was working together with him and others to promote the area. So don't just think about it as people who have a direct relationship and will sell your business. It's wider than that. It's influential people in the industry, in the area, even if there's not a direct correlation between your business and theirs.
Thanks, Mike. Is there any other sort of specific questions? Obviously, we've got Yvonne on the programme helping to deliver on the sort of specialist aspects of the travel trade. So as we're sort of working through, Jason, question?
Not so much a question as just a comment. I thought both presentations were excellent. I've been involved in the travel industry for more than 25 years and in Northern Ireland for about 18 years. And I think what both of them have said is absolutely spot on. It is about selling the destination first. It's about working with people in your local area. And Mike is absolutely 100%. It's working with the travel industry is a slow burn. You've got to put in the years. I always say to our businesses, when you're going to shows, you're probably looking at 3 or 4 years before you start to see any sort of return. So, I mean, I think what you guys are speaking about is 100% spot on, especially for the guys in Northern Ireland. And look, I'm around to help and offer any kind of support for anybody really. But I 100% agree with everything that was said in those presentations today.
Thanks, Jason. So yeah, as I said, we'll be obviously aligning the support for those who feel that they want to start that journey. And obviously we're here to sort of link in with Yvonne and the sort of the SSDA in terms of the push that they have. And I would always sort of put it down to, it's like a traditional business who start to export a product into a new market. It takes a wee bit of thought. It takes a bit of time to research that market. And then you've got to put a wee bit of resource in behind it and see it through before you get the return. So it's the same type of decision making. This is just another route to market for your business and building on from what you're already doing. So thanks again to Mike. Seriously, and I know how busy you really are. So I really appreciate you coming on this afternoon. There's definitely a bottle of something that will wing its way to you to say thank you for your precious time and sharing your experiences with the group. So thanks again, Mike. I'm just going to briefly share my screen just to wrap up. If you just okay, I think we've met with everybody now, and obviously the business improvement plans, I think we're sort of on track with them in terms of just having that sense check in terms of where you're at. We've got the second one-to-ones all lined up, so I think we're hoping that myself and Yvonne get some bullet points back from you in advance of that in terms of where you're at and some of the specific actions that are emerging. There is a theme emerging in terms of technology, in terms of booking systems, in terms of web redevelopment or bringing it up to date, social media. So there's definitely a number of key things that are starting to sort of come through in terms of actions, as well as looking at your existing products and collaborating with others in terms of that, back to that destination thing, making sure that we're working together from a destination point of view. The digital reviews, I think, apart from I'm not singling you out here, Andrew. I think if you're still on, Andrew and Rick, there's an email that you just need to respond back to Visit Scotland with a GDPR thing. But I think apart from that, the rest of the digital reviews are all sort of in hand. I think some have actually happened. So once we get that information, we'll be able to feed that into your business development sort of plan and your improvement plan. But again, these are more actions for the shoulder months, because I appreciate we're into June tomorrow and things are starting to get busier for the season in terms of bookings and making some money. So that's all on track, which is great. The next workshop's on the 14th of June. That's all scheduled in. We're going to have Visit Scotland talking. I think we're going to have Jason coming in just to talk a wee bit of intel. We'll probably put you into 2 groups for that. And that's all sort of lined up. The residential, I just want to, I've emailed out to everybody about the residential. We're looking at Sunday the 2nd and Monday the 3rd of October, a 24-hour arriving about midday on the 2nd, leaving about midday on the 3rd. We're sort of looking at I've just lost a hotel just outside Perth, Dunkeld House Hotel. We're just about finalising arrangement with that. So the residential is all paid for. So that would be your accommodation, your food, some alcohol up to a point, I think, but not obviously an all-night bar. And then obviously we've got a whole sort of series of guest speakers, and I think we're going to get some involved with activities as well. The only cost to yourself is A, your time, and B, transport. So we're hoping that the group from Ireland can share a car and come across. And from the people from Dumfries and Galloway, just as you're getting to know each other, you might hopefully be able to share cars. It's about a 3-hour journey max from the D&G, and it's fairly good roads. Once you're on the M74, it's all the way up past up the A9 and just north of Perth, and that's all been dualled now. So I'm just looking for everybody to come back to me as soon as you can on the 2nd and the 3rd. I've had 1 person can't so far, 3 yeses. So if you're able to just let me know as soon as possible. Obviously, we want, everybody to be there, but I appreciate there are things that if there's a wedding planned in, that's something that can't be changed. So if you can feed back to me as soon as you can, I'll probably put a message out again on the WhatsApp group just to sort of nudge people along. So that's something we're looking forward to, because it's great to get people in the room together and just spend a bit of quality time. And I think that's really us this evening. I appreciate everybody's time. I know we've ran on slightly, but I think it was good to get that sort of overview from Yvonne and an overview from Mike. And at the next session, we'll get somebody talking about experiential product development and what they've done. A guy called Brian Sharp from Woodlands Glencoe, and another business that he's set up, and he's doing quite a lot of creative content and delivering a number of sort of new products in the Highlands. So we're going to hear from Brian, which will be good. So I'll just stop sharing. So I think that's us this evening. Has anybody got any final just questions while you've got us at the moment? Or are we all okay? I appreciate you all hanging back. Dinner's probably on, so that is good. The next one-to-ones are all scheduled in, which is great. Andrew, I'll catch up with you. I think I just need to get a date sorted out with you, and we're good to go. And apart from that, just look forward to catching up with you in sort of later on in June. And as Yvonne and myself have always said, if you need anything in the short term, or you want to have a chat about anything, please just get in touch by email. We don't wait for us to get in touch with you if there's something you want to discuss. So thank you for participating this evening, and I hope it was worthwhile.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Bye then.
Brilliant. Thanks, Fergus.
Thanks all. Thanks, guys.
Bye all.
Bye.